It was a gloomy Thursday afternoon in the small town of Woodpine, Oregon. The clouds hung low, heavy with rain. The wind moaned through the trees that lined the rural road, stirring up dead leaves and an unsettling feeling. The type of weather that clung to your bones. Michael Turner, 34, pulled up in his faded navy blue 2009 Subaru Outback, its wipers squeaking rhythmically against the windshield. He'd inherited the car from his late brother, another memory he tried to suppress. The old estate he parked in front of was nestled at the end of Hawthorne Lane, a narrow gravel road where the trees leaned in too close, as if whispering secrets to one another. Michael was a freelance writer and amateur documentarian. Recently divorced and desperate for purpose, he had moved from Portland to Woodpine, renting this crumbling Victorian house for cheap. It was supposed to be a fresh start. He'd planned to document his renovation process for a YouTube series. New life, old bones. The irony was that the house would live up to that name in a way he never expected. The house had character, but it also had rot. Creaky floorboards, a leaky roof, and worst of all, a basement door that wouldn't stay shut. The first time it opened on its own, Michael had chalked it up to the wind. The second time, he figured it was the faulty latch. But on the fourth night, when he was editing footage at 2 a.m., and the door creaked open slowly, revealing pitch blackness below, it was impossible to ignore. He grabbed his phone and flashlight and descended the narrow staircase. The basement smelled of damp, concrete and moldy wood. Rusted tools hung on nails hammered decades ago. An old cast-iron furnace stood like a silent sentinel in the corner, long since retired. Dust motes floated in the flashlight's beam like ghostly insects. But what caught Michael's eye was a strange section of the basement wall. It wasn't brick like the rest, just plain mismatched drywall. It looked newer, out of place. The next morning, he called his neighbor, Eleanor Ellie Briggs, a retired nurse in her late 60s who'd lived on the lane for over 40 years. "I'd avoid poking around too much in that basement, hon," she said over tea in her sunroom. "That house has a reputation. Last owner, Mr. Harlan, went missing. Before him, a college couple. They left in the middle of the night. Never even came back for their deposit." Michael blinked. "What do you mean missing? Police get involved?" "They said he probably left town. But we know better around here. That place, it's wrong." He laughed, uneasy. "I don't believe in ghosts if that's where this is going." Ellie's expression darkened. "Then maybe you'll believe in something worse, something alive." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. His dreams were full of scratching, sounds, low breathing, and footsteps above his bed when no one was there. He awoke at 3:14 a.m. to a strange sound, a faint, rhythmic thump-thump, thump-thump, coming from the basement. He crept downstairs barefoot, heart racing. He pressed his ear against the basement door. Thump-thump, was that breathing? He flung open the door, flashlight in hand, and bolted down the stairs. Nothing. Just that odd drywall panel again. He approached it, heart pounding. The drywall had been hastily installed. The seams were jagged, and when he knocked, hollow. Something was behind it. He ran upstairs, grabbed a crowbar, and returned. Each strike peeled away history. Drywall chunks scattered on the floor until he found a wooden door behind it. Locked. He drilled the screws out the next morning. Inside was a small hidden room. There was a mattress, yellowed and torn, a chained-up toilet, a rusted bucket, and, most disturbingly, childish drawings on the walls. Stick figures, a man with red eyes, a crying child. A phrase repeated over and over, "Don't let him out." Then something caught his eye, a scrapbook tucked behind a broken cinder block. Inside were photographs, grainy Polaroids, of children. Different ones, and one that made Michael's blood run cold. His brother Sam. Michael staggered back, the flashlight slipping from his hand and clattering to the ground. Sam had disappeared when they were teens. Left the house one night after a fight with their father. Never seen again. Everyone assumed he ran away. But there he was, 13 years old, eyes wide with terror. And there, next to him, in another photo, an adult man, shadowed but unmistakable, the man who used to own the house. Mr. Harlan. Michael dropped the book, vomited into the corner. This wasn't just a haunted house. It was a crime scene. A tomb. He called the police. They opened an investigation, but what they found was even darker than he imagined. Behind the wall, in the floor beneath the hidden room, they unearthed bones, multiple skeletons, children, adults, and one smaller set with a cracked femur, confirmed to be Sam's. Michael went numb for days. They told him Mr. Harlan had been a foster parent in the late 90s, took in troubled kids. He'd slipped through the cracks. No one had bothered to investigate when the kids ran away. One of the officers, a young woman named Detective Reina Lopez, took special interest in Michael's case. She had a younger brother herself. "I don't believe in ghosts," she said, "but sometimes places remember pain. Maybe that's what you felt." He nodded. "I always felt like something was pulling me back here. I thought it was grief, but maybe it was him. Sam." Michael decided to leave the house, but not before doing one last thing. He painted over the walls in the hidden room, then carved one sentence into the wood above the door. "Justice found. Rest now." But as he packed his bags and stepped outside for the last time, something stopped him. The wind had picked up. From the basement he heard a sound again. Thump thump, then a voice, whispered, barely audible. "Don't let him out." He froze, because the voice wasn't Sam's. It was someone else's. A week later, Detective Reina was filing paperwork when she got a call. Michael's Subaru had been found, abandoned on a logging road 20 miles from town. Inside, his phone, his wallet, but no sign of him. They searched the woods. Nothing. At the house, they found the basement door wide open again. This time, something had clawed from inside the wall. Not human. No fingerprints, only long, jagged scratch marks on the inside of the hidden door. The wood carving burned away. The house has since been sealed off by the state, but on stormy nights the neighbors swear they still hear something, breathing, waiting, thump, thump. You ever hear the sound of a basement door closing when no one's home? I have. It was the summer of 1993 when I moved into my grandmother's old house after she passed. The place was just outside of Buffalo, New York. White siding, green, shutters, and a sloping lawn that dipped into thick woods out back. She left the house to my mother, and my mother passed it to me with a box of keys and a quiet warning. "Don't go into the basement unless you have to. Your grandma used to say that place remembers things." I was 22 then, freshly graduated, broke, and trying to figure out what to do with my life. The house was old but free, and that was enough. I didn't care about haunted basements or whispers from the past. Everything inside smelled of mothballs and old lemon cleaner. The furniture was trapped under plastic like it was waiting for someone to peel back time. The clocks all ticked out, of sync. The wallpaper curled at the edges like it was trying to escape the walls. But the basement, from day one, I noticed the kitchen door leading down would never stay locked. I'd slide the bolt, hear the click, and still, every morning, it'd be unlatched again. At first I thought it was just old wood and bad hinges, until the scratching started. It came at night, soft at first, a slow, dragging scrape against the concrete walls down below. I thought maybe it was an animal, a raccoon, a trapped possum. But it kept happening, every night. At exactly 2:16 a.m., I started sleeping with a baseball bat. I didn't feel safe, even when I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. The air felt colder near the basement door, like the heat never made it there. One night I decided enough was enough. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off, the bat in my hand, and stared at the basement door. The wind outside howled through the trees, but the house was dead quiet. No creaks, no groans. Then the scratching began. And then, the basement light flicked on. The bulb down there hadn't worked since I moved in. I stood up, walked to the door, and slowly opened it. The light buzzed faintly below. I stepped down the creaking wooden stairs one at a time, the bat clenched tightly in my right hand. The room was empty, just the same covered furniture and old wooden shelves sagging under the weight of forgotten things. But then I saw it, a crack in the far wall, long, narrow, about chest height. It looked like the concrete had split from the inside. Cold air pushed out of it, steady and slow. I stepped closer and then I heard it. A voice, a woman's whisper. "You're not her." I didn't scream, not right away. I just backed away, every nerve in my body firing. The bat slipped from my hand, clattered to the floor. I turned, ran up the stairs, and the door slammed shut. I pounded on it, cried out. No one came. The house was too far from the road. I was stuck. I didn't sleep that night. I curled in the corner near an old trunk and kept my eyes on the crack, waiting for something to crawl out of it. But nothing came. The next morning, the door creaked open on its own. I didn't ask how or why. I grabbed my things and left. I stayed with a friend in the city. I only went back once a few days later to get the last of my boxes. Before I left, I checked that wall again. The crack was wider, and carved beneath it were 4 words, etched deep into the concrete like claw marks. "Don't let her out." I didn't tell the police, didn't tell my mom. The house burned down 5 years later. They called it an electrical fire, but I know better. And sometimes, even now, when the wind howls just right and the night is too quiet, I hear scratching, and I check the walls. When I was 13, my father bought a decaying farmhouse in rural Vermont, about 10 miles outside Montpelier. The year was 1991. My parents called it a fresh start. I called it the middle of nowhere. It was a 2-story colonial, built in the 1890s, painted flaking red with a wraparound porch that sagged like tired shoulders. The place had sat empty for over a decade, and you could tell. The shutters were crooked. The barn had collapsed on itself like an animal curling, up to die, and the air always smelled like old earth and mildew. But it was the basement, the root cellar as the locals called it, that was different. Even on sunny days it was freezing down there. The door to it sat at the far end of the kitchen, disguised, like a pantry. It was built low and narrow with stone walls that wept moisture year-round. There was no electric light, just a rusty lantern hanging from a hook and a set of crumbling stairs that descended into darkness. My dad used it to store potatoes and canned vegetables. He said the cold preserved everything better. "Just don't go poking around too deep," he told me once, his voice unusually serious. Old houses remember things, he'd say that a lot. Old houses remember. I thought it was just one of his weird poetic sayings, until the whispering started. It came on the 3rd week. I was alone after school, sitting at the kitchen table with my Walkman playing Guns N' Roses, trying to finish a history worksheet. That's when I heard it, barely audible, like someone talking behind a wall. I yanked off the headphones. Silence. I got up, crept toward the pantry door, and pressed my ear to the wood. "Rebecca." It was faint, like it had traveled miles, through soil just to reach me. I backed away. Fast. That night I told my dad. He laughed at first, but then his eyes shifted, like he wanted to dismiss it but couldn't. "Your great aunt used to say the same thing," he muttered. "Said the cellar talked to her. Course she drank like a fish." The next day he nailed the door shut, but that didn't stop it. 3 days later, it came again, louder, clearer. "Rebecca, it's so cold down here, come keep me company." I told Mom. She scolded Dad for scaring me with ghost stories and took down the boards herself, said we were turning the basement into a pantry like normal people. That evening, after dinner, I sat watching Unsolved Mysteries in the living room when I heard the cellar door creak open. I turned slowly. Nothing was there. Just an open door and a black void below it. Then came the thud, like something climbing the stairs. I froze. "Mom." I called, no answer. "Dad?" No answer. Another thud. Closer. I grabbed the fireplace poker and crept to the door. "Stop playing," I shouted into the dark. Something replied, not in words. It laughed, a low, wet, rattling sound that echoed up the stone steps like breath through water. I slammed the door shut, wedged the kitchen table in front of it, and ran outside barefoot. I sat on the porch until my parents came home from a movie in town. They didn't believe me, said it was a nightmare. But I know what I heard. The next day I convinced my dad to help me search the cellar. He brought a flashlight and his .38 revolver, just in case. It was colder than usual, breath fog cold. I could see my own shivering hands. We moved past the shelves, deeper than I'd ever gone before. That's when I saw it. A wooden hatch, hidden beneath an old rug almost fused to the stone floor. I don't remember that, Dad said. He pried it open. A narrow hole yawned beneath, descending farther than the flashlight beam could reach. Stone steps slick with moss wound down into what looked like a second cellar, older, untouched. He insisted on going down first. Just stay by the edge, he said. I waited. He disappeared into the dark. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. Then, I heard him scream. The kind of scream you don't forget. Ragged, terrified, swallowed by something deeper than just fear. I shouted his name. No answer. I ran back upstairs, yelling for Mom. She called the sheriff. They searched the hole for days. Sent in lights, ropes, even dogs. Nothing. Not a sign of my father. Like he had been erased. They bricked it up after that. The whole cellar. Sealed it with concrete and steel beams. Said it was unsafe. Too unstable. That's what the newspaper said too. But I still live in that house. I inherited it after Mom passed. And even now, in the dead of winter when the wind cuts through the trees like knives, I sometimes hear it beneath the floorboards. Rebecca, come keep me company. And I swear, sometimes the walls still breathe.